Opinions expressed are those of the program host and guest and not WSTU. WSTU does not endorse any products mentioned. Any reproduction or retransmission of this broadcast is strictly prohibited without written consent of WSTU.
The Treasure Coast longest-running local talk radio show is on the air. The Treasure Coast Forum. Get interested, get educated, get involved, and give us a call with your opinions at 220-9788. And here's your host of the Treasure Coast Forum.
Hello, I'm your host for today, John, and I'm back this week with Mr. Frank.
Indeed, we are back. The guys are in the house.
Yeah, we are.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And No is still cracking the books.
Yeah, she's cracking the books.
Yes.
So essentially, in our program, the IB program, they have a thing where instead of doing like AP, they test us constantly the last 2 weeks in senior year. So every single day, it's something else. Chemistry, biology, English, 1 to 2 papers a day. Even 3 sometimes. It's a lot.
All right. Well, no boring moments, that's for sure.
No boring moments. A lot of stressful ones, though.
Yeah.
So how have you been?
Good. Doing real well.
I feel like I haven't been here in ages.
It's just been 7 days.
It feels like forever.
Yeah, that's great. It's always fun when you're in the house because you and I love to chat about space news. Do you want to do that now, or you want to save that towards the end? What's a chef's choice? What would you like to do?
Let's spread it out a little bit through the program.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so
you want to start with it though?
No, let's start with something else.
Okay, start with something else.
Something interesting that me and Mr. Frank were talking about before
the show.
So it was essentially, there was a Roman bust, for which those of you who don't know, it's like a statue, usually of a head or some sort.
Right, just a head and shoulder.
Heads and shoulder. Mm-hmm. This one in particular is kind of like the neck and up.
Right.
But essentially,
yes,
this was found in 2018. The person bought it for $35 in a Texas like thrift shop, like a secondhand thrift shop,
right,
for $35. And then they looked it up because they thought it looked extremely old, and it turned out it was a 2,000-year-old,
at least
Roman,
2,000,
at least,
yeah, maybe more, yeah,
from the 1st century BC or the 1st century AD.
Yes.
Can you explain to me how that even happens?
Yeah.
Really? I know this happens a lot, but
So during World War II, a lot of artifacts got
they got confiscated, and then they were going to be given back to the families like later in time, right?
Well, a lot of the stuff was stolen from museums and such. So, and yeah, I mean, a lot of that happened in Iraq. During the Iraq War, a lot of their antiquities were stolen, and people keep finding them today, and they try to filter them back into their museum. But
right. If we're talking about that, though, I think it was Cambodia that was talking to what was it? It was talking to England, saying to ask back for all their artifacts.
Right. Oh yeah, because it's in the
because England has a history of
because they had these guys that were you had these people that didn't have a clue, and then of course all these folks from the various institutions that were all about studying ancient artifacts would go to these backwater, for want of a better term, locations, and they would just spirit the things away because it was just stuff that didn't mean anything to the people there at that time.
Did I ever tell you this story? So this was told to me by a friend of mine, which I found like the funniest thing, but the most craziest thing ever. So Easter Island, how they have like massive...
sure.
The island, the one with the massive heads.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So what happened was, I forgot when this was. This was like earlier in time. But essentially what happened was, as people from England, I believe it was, essentially what happened is they went over and they saw the statues, like, we want to take one back. So they found the best looking one. And yeah, okay. So no, this is the starting point.
What could go wrong?
So they found the best looking one they could find, and like, we're taking that one. And they asked the natives, like, what's that? Like, what is it called? Right? Because we're taking one, obviously, like, without even asking them, right? I can't pronounce this, so sorry if I pronounce this wrong, but it's like Rapa Nui. And essentially, what it meant is stolen friend. So it was labeled that for forever, and then it's just stolen friend. And I'm like,
that is outstanding.
it's some sense of humor.
That shows that the natives were more with it than these collectors realized. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's great. Well, the fact that they probably had to send a lot of heavy equipment to move these things, they still don't know how those things got planted there in the first place. That's the great mystery of Easter Island.
I thought they were saying they could have done it with like ropes and twine from like when the island actually was like populated with trees and such, right?
Perhaps, but there's nothing left behind to give them an indication of what, like if they used ropes or tools, there would be some wear marks, and there's no indication on these artifacts how they were able to place them, where they came from originally, were they brought there, were they stone chiseled on site, and they just don't have all those answers.
I think they were. It was, pardon me. So it's like about like 50 nautical miles from them. There are like different islands around them. They have like a lot of the same trees that would have been there before. So they were estimating that it would have been like a quite big, like giant civilization. Then it fell due to like what was that? Overexploitation of natural resources such as like trees and whatnot. And those trees in that area in particular take forever to grow. So thus, when those got cut down, it kind of just fell because they were relying off of a lot of like seafaring hunting, like the Polynesians.
Right.
Well. And then once that's gone,
right,
everything's gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting stuff, though.
It is.
Interesting. Okay. So would you like to do this day in history?
We can do a few items from this day in history. What was the item that jumped out to you?
Okay. So today, the Berlin blockade ended.
Yeah. That was on this date in 1949. The Soviet Union ends the blockade of the West Berlin, which the United States and Britain had overcome with the Berlin Airlift. That was a big deal. We're kind of doing the equivalent of that right now with Ukraine, through Poland, but we are bringing in some food and supplies and as well as munitions and stuff. So they're kind of, because what Russia's trying to do is trying to block off the Black Sea, which is the big port in Odessa, where they would be able to offload things. But that's currently under siege right now, I guess. It's going to be pretty interesting to see how that all shakes out.
Seafarer warfare, it's been pretty interesting because, the Ukrainians took out one of the Russian flagships within like the first couple weeks.
Yeah. And there's another one that went to the bottom about a week or so ago to another big ship.
Really? Yeah. I thought it was all over when their head ships get hit. Because, at that point, that's just an assault on everything.
Right. Yeah. Patriot General Benjamin Lincoln surrenders Charleston, South Carolina, and more than 5,000 troops to British General Sir Henry Clinton. And this happened on this date in 1780. And in 1864, on this date, some of the bloodiest fighting in the Civil War rages as the Battle of Spotsylvania Courthouse in Virginia. So that was pretty interesting. And in 1943, on this date, World War II, Axis troops in North Africa surrendered after advances by the Allied forces.
Wow.
Neat stuff.
It's a lot of stuff in this day in history.
Yes. And duty, honor, country. On May 12th, 1962, West Point Military Academy awarded General Douglas MacArthur the Thayer Award, given each year to a citizen whose service to the nation has exemplified West Point's motto, duty, honor, country. The following comes from a speech MacArthur had delivered to the Academy's Corps of Cadets in acceptance of the award. Duty, honor, country. These are the three hallowed words recently dictate what you ought to be, what you can be, and what you will be. They are your rallying points to build courage when courage seems to fail, to regain faith when there seems to be little cause for faith, and to create hope when hope becomes forlorn.
Wow.
Pretty good speechwriter
Yeah.
for a general.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I mean, some people they have the gravitas to really understand what all they're about,
I would agree.
Yeah. Very
Okay.
cool.
I would like to start with a little bit of space news.
Okay, well, in that case, let's do that.
Start with the intro, I guess.
Yes, we'll get the intro going in. And now, here is John with a space report. Take it away, John.
Okay, so this was about, at least within the last 24 hours, a pretty major development actually occurred. So, Mr. Frank, where do we exist? What is our place in the universe?
We are just in one little corner of the Milky Way galaxy. we're in the outer range. We are not anywhere where the big action is.
We're pretty far out.
We are.
Okay, so earlier this, in the last 24 hours, as I said, it was by a group of the Event Horizon Telescope collaboration. It's
the Event Horizon, right?
So essentially, it was a group of, I think, 5 or 6 different major telescopes across the world. And what they're doing was they're tracking objects in the sky, such as literally anything. And every single one had upwards of 40 miles per hour. Everything they were tracking was going at insane speeds. And what their goal was to track out everything and essentially put it into I believe it was a computer program, so they could essentially dictate how everything interacts with the rest of the universe.
Kind of 3D model it.
And then thus they could map out what the center of the universe is. And those who don't know, at the center of pretty much every universe is a massive black hole.
Right.
So our one in question is
our galaxy. You say universe, you mean galaxy.
A galaxy.
Yes.
Is, for all intents and purposes, we're not even beyond it.
Right. That's our galaxy, right?
So it's Sagittarius A. So essentially, I can't even fathom this, but so the sun? I was reading about
that big
this.
yellow thing in this. Yeah.
You know that thing? You can touch it.
Don't touch it. It's too hot.
Yeah. Okay. So I was reading about it, and it says it's about 4 million times the mass of our sun.
Huge.
I can't even picture that.
That's the black hole. And our sun you can put all the planets in our solar system and they would just take up a small portion of our sun.
And then imagine that.
Yeah.
Just if that doesn't make you think about the scale of the entire universe compared to us, compared to us, we're literally not even a grain of sand.
Well, in uniquely place as we are in the Milky Way, we are in a very low radiation zone from all the other, when you get into deep space, there's a higher radioactive radiation passing through those areas, and we just happen to be nestled in a little corner of the galaxy, which is wow.
No,
just perfect for us to be able to develop. So I don't know.
It's amazing.
It is amazing.
And then this also is extremely interesting to me. We're 26,000 light years away from it.
Okay. 26,000 light years. Right. 26,000 light years. Yeah.
Things to try to picture.
Right.
Things you can't even picture.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So,
but it's pretty neat. They actually were able to 3D image what they can imagine what that black hole would look like. But the black holes are unique in that they feel that they have such significant amount of gravity, even light cannot escape it. That is why it's called a black hole.
And so,
and so these images they have, as I understand it, actually show light kind of in a swirling.
Yes, and then at the center of it with Sagittarius A, it's like a dense pocket of I guess sun rays. So kind of like that, but just much brighter. If you want to look.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's literally
spiral. It's like a spiral.
hue of
Yeah.
yellow right in the middle.
Yeah. Very cool.
And then it was talking about how it's 40 million miles across.
Wow. Yeah, just a walk in the park. 40 million miles.
Try driving that.
40 million miles. Look how many weeks it took for our JWST, James Webb Space
to get into position.
And it was only 1 million miles from here.
Oh my gosh.
Right? And it was moving, pretty good clip, but what, 35,000 miles an hour, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah. And it took several weeks just to travel 1 million miles.
Just trying to picture it.
Yeah.
Can't even picture it
Nope.
at some levels.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
So I think we should get our sponsor out of the way.
We can. Let's do the sponsor, and then we'll do one more space thing. We want to talk about the Mars.
Yes, the Mars sample coming back.
Yes.
Okay. So Sailfish Roofing is a locally owned company that above all offers honesty and integrity in everything that they do. You can trust Sailfish Roofing to use quality material and workmanship designed to give you peace of mind, whether you are doing a re-roof repair or replacing an existing roof. Sailfish Roofing is a community roofing company that you can trust. Call 772-263-ROOF.
Right. Yeah, we want to thank Sailfish Roofing for
Thank you very much.
for being our sponsor, being part of because they are community minded. They're part of the show, and that's we're truly honored that they want to allow us to continue doing what we do here in the radio station. So, and if you need a roof, somebody who needs a roof, and you want to get ready for hurricane season, you just want to get your roof examined before it, a big event, probably a good idea to give them a call, and they'll be happy to give you, the heads up as to what's going on. If you're in good shape, if you want to make changes, you are planning to do a fixer-upper, do a room addition, you just never know. So give them a call at 772-263-ROOF. Roof. That's excellent. Thank you for that. Okay, so there's two things on Mars we can touch on.
Yes, the water as well.
The water, yes, very good. You're up to speed.
I'm actually up to speed for once. Okay,
very good. Yes, there's a Chinese rover finds evidence that water was present on Mars even more recently than we had thought earlier. So that's huge.
Now, I didn't click on that article. How recent are we talking? Couple thousand?
Well, yeah, probably. It could be.
Probably
we were thinking
thousand.
Millions, right? So let's click on the article. No, close. It's just going to let me. Yeah, there it is. Oh, yeah. Okay. Prior research has suggested parts of the Martian surface were covered with water up until approximately about 3 billion years ago. Yeah, just 3 billion years. Yeah. What's a billion here or a billion there? But the time since the water dried up on Mars is known as the Amazonia period. In this new effort, data from the Chinese rover Zhurong has shown the researchers evidence that water on Mars might have persisted longer than had been thought. So they don't say exactly what that time is, but maybe not quite 3 billion, maybe only 2 billion. But more recent.
More recent than
Yes.
3 billion.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds legit.
Yeah. So, but it's just a preliminary data, but it's great to, the more we understand that, the more we can know how we're going to interact with.
Yeah, plan future missions as
right,
well.
Such as when we bring back rocks from the planet.
Leading into our next segment.
Exactly right. Pretty good segue. Go ahead.
It is. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
So our next bit of Mars, which is coming back, is essentially what's going to happen when they come back, all the samples. So there's been talk about it possibly contaminating the earth, which I find very interesting.
Right.
I'm not a very skeptical person, but I mean, if it's in a sealed lock container,
Right.
nothing can get out.
Well, that's what they thought of the Wuhan lab too.
Oh, wow. Okay. But like Opal missions to get like samples from the
Right.
Mars and whatnot as well.
Right. Well, interestingly enough, 50 years ago, during the moon landing period, there was a guy by the name of Carl Sagan. You may have heard of him. And he had postulated that there's a possibility that the astronauts could bring back contaminants to Earth that could be life-threatening. We don't know. So let's take some precautions. So the astronauts were actually put in quarantine for 21 days before they had so they actually were like in a, I wouldn't call it a Winnebago. They were in an
space?
No. After they returned from space, they were actually kept in a Airstream trailer for 21 days, and then they were could come out. But that was
21 days.
Yeah, 21 days, I guess, because I figured if there was
something appears.
Well, they figured, if there's any contamination, any biohazard, and it would, in 21 days it would see some evidence of that. So if not, okay, we're good to go. So yeah, anyways, but that was a big deal. That was a big concern because it's like, we're headlong rushing off to go to the moon, and Carl Sagan raises his hand. He goes, guys,
if something happens,
what if, and they says, okay, well, we don't have to take, extreme measures here. It's just, go in quarantine for a bit. So
interesting.
Yeah. So this is really kind of
new territory, I guess.
Well, but what we're talking about in the Mars thing is really harkens back to 50 years ago, or thinking back then too. So it's like, err on the side of caution.
Okay.
So I know earlier missions, they were actually thinking of taking the Martian samples and examining them on the space station,
just to prevent any potential.
Sure. We would have all, we could set up a lab there just as easy.
Wow. Oh yeah, that would be okay.
That would make sense, right?
That would make sense. Oh, leading into another segment, if you want.
Mm-hmm.
So it was DARPA, which is essentially a government program.
Right.
So a government program, as I say. Okay.
Yes.
So essentially what they're doing is they're trying to set up more contractors so they can do more manufacturing in space.
Right.
So kind of along those ideas, you can do everything in space.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's last week we talked about TiO2, titanium dioxide on.
That was an interesting segment, actually.
Yes.
It's in everything.
Yes.
You were talking about how it's in like foods. It's
yeah. If it's white, it probably has TiO2 in it.
We were talking about how I believe it was forgot which robot it was. So essentially they were setting up like a photosynthesis formula using O2.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're trying to say essentially we can make this out of the materials. I believe it was on Mars, or was it? No, it was on the moon.
The moon, right.
And they're you could do like restocks on the moon of using natural resources there.
Right. So, because originally we were thinking about just setting up a lunar base on the South Pole because there's water there. And they go, okay, well, we can use the water.
You can make anything out of it that we need.
Right. So, and they probably will still do that, but they could venture out now to other areas and at least make oxygen out of just the rocks, which is...
It's crazy.
It's crazy, but sure, it makes sense. You can do it. Why not?
If there's a will, there's a way, I guess.
That's right. Okay.
We're heading to break.
We are indeed. So yeah, we'll let Rocky and Bullwinkle maybe not.
Maybe if they're coming today.
Yeah.
If you are over 40 and
Whoa, no, that's not it. That's not them. Don't you hate those pop-up commercials?
And now,
Hey,
There we
Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat.
again,
Nothing up my sleeve. Presto!
wrong hat.
I take a 7.5.
No, here's something
We hope you'll really like.
And we are back from our break. Okay.
We are. So you ran a word by me that got by me. What is that word again for our listeners?
I believe it is pronounced murmurations.
Okay. And the
Any
meaning
guesses?
is no. Run it by
No
me.
guesses.
Okay.
Okay. So you know in like movies of like the African plains and whatnot, you see birds do kind of a grouping pattern. They swoop in and they
Yes.
bunch up, and there's like no set formula, right? It's just almost pure randomness, right?
Yeah, but it turns out it's not random.
Kind of. Okay, so scientists, it was researchers in Italy. They were trying to apply the laws of physics to these, like what they were doing.
Right.
Like, of course, they're using it on. It was starlings, which are a type of.
Small birds.
Yeah, they're small birds. So
Mhm.
essentially, like, of course, it's
They
to.
fly in big flocks.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
of course, it's also to like avoid predators and whatnot.
Right.
Right. So they're applying it, and essentially, what they were trying to do was make a mathematical model of it, and then essentially analyzing their flight patterns and like what they're doing to see if they could apply it to like drones and whatnot, like surveying crops.
Right.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting thing. Though.
And what I knew about the bird flock methodology or the thinking, if there was any, is that they actually take advantage of draft lift by flying in a group, and they actually can go farther and use less energy, which is pretty
I also
pretty cool.
found this statement very interesting. It was Dr. Antonio Kula of Universia of Sapienza in Rome. There is no leader in a flock. Everybody imitates its neighbors.
Yes.
Can you just imagine that?
Yeah.
If you're flying around everywhere and there's no set formula.
Yeah.
And it somehow works.
It's just nature finds a way. Very cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So next up, this was also another thing I don't think Mr. Frank caught, which is surprising. So
Okay.
actually, not really. This was in the last 7 hours.
Okay.
So there was a major crypto crash in the markets.
I did not catch that.
Okay. So what essentially...
I don't have any money in cryptocurrency. That probably could have something to do. Otherwise, I'd be paying attention to it.
Stocks maybe then.
Right.
Okay. So essentially, there's things in the crypto market that are kind of thing, but not really thing. They're just what you call like stable currency. It's literally called stable coin. So like if it has a constant trend, kind of like gold, it only has like increases or it just stays the same for like forever.
Mm.
So essentially, one of the biggest cryptocurrencies, Terra Luna. So last month, like this is a bit of a shock for even me that barely knows anything about it. It had a $118 value, and then today it had a 9-cent value. It lost 99% of its value.
Wow.
Just
Wow. Huge.
giving a little bit of show how fickle the markets are, but
Whoa.
and then I believe this is a sister coin, but don't quote me on that because I'm just guessing based off the name. It's called Terra USD, and its thing is essentially every single one is equal to US dollar, and then today it fell to 4 cents.
Oof.
And then this caused a spiraling across the entire platforms dealing with cryptocurrency, that essentially everybody was just selling all the cryptocurrencies, because at that point, if the biggest cryptocurrencies are just crashing like crazy, everything's just downhill from there.
Right. And this is the problem when you have cryptocurrencies not based on, any hard
Like gold
commodity.
or anything.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I find it very interesting though, because I believe it was like El Salvador, and then there was I forgot what it was. There was an African state, I believe it was, that use it as like a Bitcoin as they're not like as one of their national currencies. How would that play into economics? Because if it goes crashing,
Right. Well, they'd have to have their own state owned and
well, I'm pretty sure they do. But
yeah.
like if you're using that, that's an interesting situation because it fluctuates daily. So you could have more or less depending.
Yep. Yeah. Strange times that we're approaching, that's for sure. Let's see now. There's a couple interesting things on townhall.com. Biden claims enormous economic growth hours after negative GDP number was released. So he says, no, pay no attention to the GDP numbers. We actually did good. But I guess the economics people would tend to differ with the president on that. Interesting thing there. What else? So there was a big vote in the Senate last night about the bill that was originally designed to conceptually to codify Roe versus Wade, but instead it went more. It did more than what Roe would have done. And so they couldn't even muster enough support even from their own team. So it failed. That was yesterday's news, and so that's a big deal. And they can't really blame the Republicans. They didn't have everybody on board for that. Biden administration under fire for alleged reaction to life or death shortage crisis, slamming families nationwide. Do you know what this is about?
No.
Baby formula. Have you been following?
Actually, no, I guess that makes sense though, because there's been problems with like baby formula even before I was even born.
There was a company earlier this year that the FDA closed because they didn't like their manufacturing process. And so there's a couple of things, sanguine points about that, in that the FDA comes to these various food producing factories and they examine their cleanliness, their manufacturing techniques, their methodology, all those things, are all their equipment. And they don't have any set schedule. They just come at some random time. But lately, because they claim to be overworked and understaffed, they haven't been coming for a while. So they arrived earlier, I think this year, and they weren't too happy with what they saw. So they closed the plant. So this is a this is a global manufacturer, right? So they have other plants in other parts of the world. So they're ramping up their production in these other plants, but they have to then ship the product here to get it distributed. So it's getting to be a big deal.
What was wrong with that?
They didn't say. They just said they didn't comply with the health FDA health
Oh,
regulations.
that's scary.
Well, there was a recall too, which prompted the FDA to close them down to take a more in-depth look at the plant, because some babies were getting sick from this particular formula, and so the FDA started examining it more closely, and they said, "Oh yeah, let's take a look at the factory." And they said, "No, we don't like this," so they closed the factory down. So it was retroactive instead of proactive in large sense. But anyway, so they did show up. They did close the plant, and the big overarching issue is that if you are a parent and for whatever reason you're feeding your baby, your newborn, formula, some babies do well with one formula and they don't do well with another. So when your brand is no longer available, um, that's an issue. That's a real issue for parents. I've heard stories where moms have been driving all over the various cities, checking all the various stores that could possibly stock this product so that they can buy enough for their baby. So it's like a big deal. And it'll
Interesting.
be months before they get it totally unraveled and get the supply chain back up and, get the factory working again and get the product. Even if they were to get the factory working today, there's 6 to 8 weeks before they can even get product on the shelves. So it's going to take a long time.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
big problem.
So I didn't see any exact like plans of this, but it was essentially the government in the UK. Essentially, what they were doing was this has been like a major problem, and within I think the last at least 2 to 3 months, essentially like Google and Facebook essentially using like user data, and then using it to like essentially do anything their heart desires. And essentially, what they're doing is if they continue to abuse their powers, what they're doing is they want to have the power to tax them about 10% of their like their yearly income, which would be a major hit for them, and then an additional 5% of their daily income for each offense daily.
Wow.
For each continued offense, which is absolutely insane, but it makes sense at the same time.
Okay. So, and we are at that time in our schedule right now where we have to take our regulation timeout. But we'll be right back, so stick with us. We will return with much more, so stick with us. Hey, how you doing? We got 2 minutes. We're on break. Oh, perfect. Okay. Oh, well. All right. Okay. Yeah, okay. All right. All right. Thanks. Bye.
And we are back. Mr. Frank, would you like to talk about the slingshot rocket idea and thing that exists that I found out over a break?
Right. So wait a minute. So it's a very interesting concept. There's this
Oh,
company.
very interesting.
So this company came up with this idea, and they actually got some startup capital to do it, and they're going to be running this test pretty soon. And what this is like this big centrifuge, for want of a better term, and they just spin the the heck out of this. They'll have a rocket body inside the centrifuge, and then they push once it reaches a certain velocity within the centrifuge, then it has a little exit tube it shoots out of, which becomes the first stage, and it throws it out into low space, right? Not real space,
Right.
but so the thickest part of the atmosphere anyways, they'll push it through that. And then the second stage, or in this case, the first stage, which would be the lifting portion of it, will ignite and continue its push out of the atmosphere. But it's pretty neat idea if they can make it work, but they have to get the exit out. So imagine you got this exit hole, this tube, right? And you're spinning this object around, and and it's moving at a blinding speed. And so when it exits, it's got to exit exactly right to go out the tube, because right, you could picture what I'm saying, because if it's premature, or it's a little retarded, it's going to impact the inside of the centrifuge. So not a good result. But it's be no different than probably any accident on a launch pad, but still not really a favorable result. That's what they call a RUD. You know what a RUD is, right?
No.
Rapid unscheduled disassembly.
Yes, I do. Okay, yes, I do.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
So our good friend Charlie from Palm City called, and he said that him and his wife saw a feature on Newsmax TV, and I'm going to try to pull it up on Newsmax, but apparently there was pallets of formula that were sent to the border, which makes sense because we got a lot of babies coming to the border from other countries. So, but yeah, but we don't have any formula for our moms at home here. Yeah. Anyway, so so we'll see if we can find if there's a headline because we can't actually do the TV, but we can take a look at stuff. Anyways, if it's there, cool. But yeah, what else you got?
Okay, so we were talking about reusable rockets off, kind of like in recent times. I believe it was like last week or the week before. We were talking about the one where they're catching the rocket booster.
Oh, right.
Via the parachutes. I had one parachute come out the other, and then
the drogue chute.
The drogue chute, and then it has I believe, what was it? It had a wire in between it. They used a J hook to try to helicopter it, but it kind of, the helicopter pilot didn't feel as safe, so
it didn't feel stable.
So he let go. So they're trying to do like recalculations to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Right, and so the thinking, they don't know exactly what happened, but they're thinking that because when they ran all these simulations before they actually did their actual thing, how do you simulate for fuel slosh in a fuel tank? And that's
an infinite combination.
Correct. So that's the problem, and so they probably have to find a way to maybe baffle the fuel in the fuel tank to keep it from sloshing. I think that might be their solution, but likely if the fuel is sloshing about, that would make it that's the only thing I could see that would make it unstable once you catch it, because if it's static, because weight wise,
it can't.
Mechanically speaking, everything they had that already understood. So what was the only rogue element is the liquid sloshing about. So yeah.
Anyways, okay, so this was another one. So it was a Forbes-based Orbex. So essentially, they're releasing a prototype rocket, which I believe it's based in Scotland. So essentially, kind of like, it will be launched from the Space Hub Sutherland, and they're trying to get it up and running by this year. And it's going through trials in Kinloss in Moray. So essentially, what they're doing is trying to make a reusable rocket and then test it out. It's very interesting though, because we've had like at least this has taken off, like reusable rockets and whatnot, and testing has taken off within the last 2 years. And then, like, from my memory, at least within the last 4 years, this has not happened. It's an interesting thing.
Indeed so.
Yeah. Just within the past years, we've made so many developments.
Right. Okay, we got time for one more news item. What do you got?
One more. Okay, this was... So you always heard about Amazon, right? So Amazon, one of their things was like, I believe it was like 4 years ago when drones started taking off.
Right.
So the entire thing was like, oh, we're going to have like automated drones and deliver mail to us, right?
Right.
So the Royal Mail in the UK wants to use about like 500 drones to ship out mail to remote communities. So essentially they, like, for those who know, it kind of looks like a Cessna except as 2 engines. So just essentially a Cessna, and then it'll be, I believe, dropping them off in then the communities at probably like a predestined determination, probably all together at once. Then they'll divvy it out in their communities, is my understanding.
Okay.
Yeah. And then it'll deliver them out to like the Isles of Sicily, Shetland Islands, Orkney Islands, and the Hebrides.
So that's their test market, their pilot program. Pilot.
Well, it's unmanned too.
Yeah, a pilotless pilot program.
Yep, pilot program as well.
That's hilarious. That is too funny.
Mm-hmm.
My goodness.
And then I guess on that idea, there was a record-setting drone display within the last 14 hours at the Coventry City of Culture. Yeah, I always found those very interesting.
Yes, I imagine you would.
You have thousands upon thousands of drones in a light show lighting up at the same time, then,
Yes. How cool is that?
It's very, very cool indeed.
Yeah. Very nice. Very nice. All right. Well, I lied. We have time for one more item.
Okay. Okay. After that, so this was by Stonehenge. They discovered about 10,000-year-old hunting pits. So this was about the time of like the last ice age. And then while they're essentially estimating that some of the things in there were from like one humanity was repopulating like Britain and whatnot after the ice age, which is pretty interesting. They couldn't find like any religious or any significance, but it kind of does show that like Stonehenge and whatnot was like a major gathering even before it was built.
Okay. So it was just an interesting gathering area.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's in a neat location.
Yeah,
So that's pretty cool.
it is.
And it was after the last ice age.
Directly after.
So they started finding artifacts and such, right?
I imagine bones probably.
Oh, just bones, not artifacts. So, okay. All right.
All right.
Boy, because, artifacts could, I'm thinking, tools of some sort or pottery or special like arrowheads or chiseled, flint, for cutting things and those kind of artifacts. But yeah, you never know what you're going to come up with. Very good. All right. Well, very good. You never know what we're going to come up with over here as well. So that's true enough. Well, we thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of our show. We thank John for being here and the other students.
We thank you.
Yes. And we thank Sailfish Roofing for sponsoring the show.
Indeed, we do.
And we thank you for listening, and we look forward to being here again next week, right here on Treasure Coast Forum. And we'll see you then. Thanks for listening.